Good day, everyone. This is Linda Comeau on behalf of the 2015 North American Constellations Conference coming up November 12th to 15th. And today I have Bill Mannle with me, who's going to talk about his program as well as a few questions. So Bill, I'd like to start off with welcome.
Hi, Linda.
Hi. And one question that everybody loves to ask another constellator is, how do you describe constellations to a stranger?
How do I describe constellations to a stranger? I don't know any strangers. No.
Great.
What I usually describe in very simple terms, because I do work with groups that know nothing about it. I just say that it's a way to look at your family system, multi-generational issues in your family system, trauma and events that still might be affecting you or might be affecting you in this present moment today. And through either individual work or group work, we kind of look at how it's affecting you and what can you do to help ease your suffering or ease your pain as a result of those generational issues. That's pretty much it. I can get lost in the description, so I try to keep it as concrete as possible. And then what usually people do is start to ask more questions, and we pull it apart a little bit.
Right.
But definitely a multi-generational systemic therapy.
And do you find people are aware that they're in pain or stress?
Most people are aware they're in some sort of pain or stress. They might not be able to identify it. Usually they'll use pretty common terms in the vernacular. I'm anxious, or I'm depressed, or I'm sad, or I'm struggling with this or that. Yeah, but they might not connect it. Usually don't connect it. Other than just their family of origin, they might connect it to their mother, or they might connect it to the father. That's pretty common. But looking at the bigger system, they won't connect it to the bigger system.
Right. Cool. And what insights have you seen using constellations?
Insights. Can you help me with that? What insights? I mean, in terms of what have I learned? What have
you learned? How long have you been doing this? Where do you see it going?
Well, I've been doing it. I started training in Constellations in 2002, so it's been about 13 years. And for me, I guess the insights are it still is a very rapid way of getting to an understanding of the issue that's affecting a person and how quickly there's resolution. Or there's some movement towards healing in a very short amount of time, whereas traditional therapies can take much longer. And where do I see it going? Well, I've done constellation works in schools, and I still think that's still a new territory. Working in multi-systems, school systems, communities, and the school systems, dealing with teachers and the students. And I know friends who are doing work in organizations to resolve organizational issues. And I have a colleague who's a lawyer, actually, and he works in Mexico, and he's trying to do this work in the court system, another system. Mm-hmm. So that's one example, or there's many examples, but I find that fascinating, because you know how sometimes systems and institutions can get so entrenched and they don't see themselves as being entrenched. So I think Constellations is the opportunity to sort of look at some of those broader issues.
Definitely. Okay.
And the whole insight thing will probably keep crackling as we keep talking. So.
Right. Well, the idea of this program really is to talk about your program coming up Saturday, November 14th. The Mysterious Life of the Heart, Passion, Love, and Longing. Would you tell us what your presentation is going to focus on?
Sure. This will be about the third or fourth time I've done this workshop. and really the core of it is asking what, and the question I ask the group is, what's our deepest longing? And the majority of the answers revolve around love. I want to I want to find love, not just romantic love. I want to feel love, but the broader sense of love. And I want to feel connected. I mean, as human beings, I think our innate nature is to belong. Thus the word belonging. And that's a big word in constellations, is where do I belong? So what the workshop looks at is our heart. What does our heart tell us? What does our heart want? And then what is our heart afraid of? Or is there fear that's keeping our heart from moving into a different space? And what I talk about and what we do in the workshop is look, okay, where is that fear coming from? If there is fear, what prevents you from moving towards something that's really your heart's desire? Whether it's a partner, whether it's a new place to live, whether it's starting a family or creating a new business. And so we look at the system. Is there something in the system that's creating that fear, that's blocking you, or something you're still holding on to? And so the idea of the workshop is using constellations and some rituals is to open that up for the person, and to expand and to perhaps free them to have a new experience. And I talk a lot about the heart. I talk about the heart as this giving and receiving sort of part of who we are. And really the heart has its own, I think, way of being in the world. It's a muscle, but it has its own nerves, and it controls a lot of how we take in information besides our brain. And when the heart and the brain are obviously working together, things usually go a little smoother. One of the things that I've noticed is that people want to be in charge of how they love. You know, like I want to love this, or I want to love you, and I'm going to be in control of how I move towards you. But we're all a little timid when someone wants to love us back. We want it, but it's like, it's a little scary. And I talk about love, how receiving is an act of love. And that's a big theme in Constellations, the balance of giving and receiving. And so I love that idea of receiving really is an act of love. By taking in something that you're giving to me, I'm showing you how much I love you, how much I love my children, my friends. But again, that can come up against ooh, and I want to know what that ooh is, that little fear. What is that fear? We explore that. And I do a few rituals to get the group going. And one of the ones I do, and I don't know if you've witnessed it or experienced this, I have people constellate their heart. One of the first things we do.
I remember that exercise. Yeah. It was spectacular.
Yeah, and I still do that. And I actually learned that in a group in Germany from Albrecht Mara, and I keep using it. And it opens up a space, and people, it has, sometimes that's all it takes. It has profound movement for people, really profound movement for people. So, and I think in the conference, I'm only going to have like an hour and a half. So I've done a whole weekend on this theme, and that's nice because it gives everybody who comes a chance to do a piece of work. I just was in Toronto, and someone counted, I did 26 constellations.
Wow.
The course of a weekend. But it's really about exploring that and creating the intimacy, an intimacy not just between a partner, but an intimacy with yourself. Being really in touch with yourself and how intimate you are with your being. And we tap on those themes. And and I'm really excited. I'm excited to talk about this, to present it, to help create the space and maybe open up another way of seeing and create some new movements for folks.
Yes, definitely exciting. Wow, that's great. Yeah. No, that heart exercise is very, very nice, very nice. And I often think about it.
And people who've done it, I've been in groups where people have done it before, and they'll come to one of my groups and they'll do it again, and they'll have a whole nother experience. Some new information will emerge because they're in a different place. So that's the beauty of it.
That's right. Yes.
I really like it.
And I just want to add here, but I don't mean it derogatorily, but I see there's a perhaps an opening for men, because in our culture, they're not really allowed to recognize their heart, their brain, and yet that's where I see a lot of halted movement.
Yeah, I think there's some truth to that. Probably less the brain and more the heart. I did a men's ritual a couple of years ago at the Australian Intensive. And something I'd like to try to explore maybe in the evening in San Francisco for men and women. But it's really, it was really powerful, and I was really moved myself on how deep the men went. It was heart work. It was a different kind of ritual, but it was really heart work. And it went very deep, and it was in the presence of the women, which is really pretty nice. So, and I think it was something that was needed. It was just something that emerged as the course of the week, as the week went by. And I hear you. Yeah, it's something that I think we as guys don't really talk too much about. Or
I just had a conversation this morning with someone like that, a gentleman saying he's almost afraid to open up, even to his spouse. It's amazing.
Well, that's why I think the ritual, the constellating your heart, is a safe, simple, yet incredibly powerful beginning if someone who's never done it before.
Well, tonight we're having a call about what to do in the evening exercises. I'll bring it up.
There you go. Okay.
Great. And so your talk is on Saturday morning, November 14th, 10:30 to 12. And anything else you'd like to add before we sign off? This was kind of quick in a way, but it was very good.
It was kind of what?
Kind of quick.
Oh, well, we can make it longer if you want.
Shorter videos get more views, I think.
Shorter videos get more views. Well, and I was just into, and when I've done this work, the heart work, it touches on some trauma for people, because a lot of people who've been traumatized, either as a child or as an adult, it's hard. The fear is much more intense. And I'll just say something about how I work. I really work to create a safe space. An hour and a half is a short time, but I really work to create a safe space, as you know, so people can move at the pace that they need to move at, or just witness. And as you know, just witnessing is just as powerful as doing a piece of work. We all get something out of it.
That's right.
So I take that into consideration too. People's hearts have been sort of shattered, you know, and yet I really believe that the movement is still to reach out. The movement to belong, the movement to connect, still is there. And the question is, how can people whose hearts have been shattered find a safe place so they can open a little bit? Not a lot, open. And it's one thing I talk about. I invite people to open their hearts. Not that much, because that's too scary, but just to see what it's like to open your heart a little bit and to feel whatever's happening. And then another thing I talk about too, since we're on this, is I talk about the idea of sanctuary. It's a great word. I love the word, but usually when our hearts are shattered, we withdraw. We put our hands up and we put a boundary around us. So what I talk about is, instead of withdrawing and hiding and clenching, is to think about putting your heart in sanctuary. Because if you think of sanctuary in the old term, as people could go into a church to escape the political forces, and yet there's air, there's light coming through, there's food, and they can breathe. And yes, even though they're in a protective environment, they can still sort of take in the air and the food and the light. So I just invite people, so next time you're feeling shattered, consider putting your heart in sanctuary as opposed to completely shutting down.
That's lovely.
Yeah, and see what that feels like. And yes, sometimes we need to withdraw, so we can, before we come back, and that's okay. So we go over those themes as well.
This is going to be great. I'm so excited. Yes.
I'm excited too.
Oh yeah, great. Okay. Well, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And we'll be putting this video up somewhere. I'm not exactly sure, but probably by the end of the week. It went very well, I think. So again, thank you, Bill.
Thank you, Linda.
We'll see you at the conference.
I will see you there.
All right. Take care.
Take care.
Bye.